The ship was dying, and Captain knew it. She stood on the bridge of the Serenity's Grace, her silver skin reflecting the red emergency lights that had been flashing for 3 days now. Around her, the remaining crew worked in silence. There had been 90 of them when they left now there were 47. The Dominion had attacked without warning. One moment, the Serenity's Grace was traveling through neutral space on a diplomatic mission. The next moment, 3 warships dropped out of hyperspace and opened fire. They were pacifists. They had no weapons worth mentioning. They could only run. They ran, but not fast enough. "Captain," said her chief engineer. He was an older, his silver skin marked with the dark spots that came with age. "Life support will fail in 6 hours. Engines are at 12%. We cannot reach friendly territory." Closed her 4 eyes and took a slow breath. They had been diplomats and peacemakers for 10,000 years. They solved problems with words, not weapons. But there were no words that could fix a dying ship. "What about the tertiary options?" she asked. "The emergency ports." Ensign Milo, the youngest member of the bridge crew, pulled up a star chart. His hands were shaking. He was barely past his coming-of-age ceremony, too young to die in the cold emptiness between stars. "There is one option, Captain," he said, "but you will not like it." He pointed to a small yellow star on the edge of the map. A blue planet circled it, third from the sun. "Earth," said. The word tasted strange in her mouth. "Class 7 Developing World," Milo read from the database. "Primitive space capabilities. First achieved orbit approximately 70 solar cycles ago. Not recommended for contact. Species is classified as unpredictable, emotional, and potentially dangerous." Had heard stories about humans. Every spacefaring species had heard stories. They were a young race, barely crawling out of their own gravity well. But there were whispers about them. Strange whispers. A species that had split the atom before they could leave their planet. A species that strapped themselves to controlled explosions just to reach their own moon. A species that seemed to run toward danger instead of away from it. The Galactic Council had decided to leave them alone. "Let them develop naturally," the Council said. "Do not interfere. Do not make contact." But the Galactic Council was not here. The Galactic Council was not watching their life support fail, their engine die, their friends, and suffocate in the darkness between stars. "Set a course for Earth," said. Looked at her with wide eyes. "Captain, the protocols." "The protocols will not matter if we are dead," sat in her command chair and gripped the armrests. "We ask for help. If they say no, we are no worse than before. If they say yes, we live. It is a simple choice." The Serenity's Grace turned toward the yellow star and limped forward on dying engines. It took 4 days to reach the edge of the Sol system. By then, life support was down to emergency reserves. The crew had gathered in the central areas of the ship, sharing warmth and oxygen. Some of them were already sick. Some of them would not survive another day. Recorded a message in Universal Standard, the common language of spacefaring peoples. She hoped the humans had learned it from the signals that leaked across the galaxy. If they had not, this would be a very short conversation. "This is Captain of the diplomatic vessel Serenity's Grace. We have suffered an attack and require immediate assistance. Our life support is failing. We request permission to approach your world for repairs. We come in peace. Please respond." She sent the message and waited. The minutes stretched into an hour. Began to think the humans had not heard or could not understand or simply did not care. Perhaps the stories were wrong. Perhaps they were not the curious, aggressive species the galaxy whispered about. Perhaps they would simply watch the die. Then the communication panel crackled to life. Copy that damaged vessel." The voice was strange, speaking Universal Standard with a heavy accent that had never heard before. "This is Houston. Did you say you need repairs? Stand by." Leaned forward. "Houston, this is Captain. Yes, we require repairs. Our situation is critical. Can you assist? There was a long pause. Could hear voices in the background, many voices, talking quickly in a language she did not understand. They sounded excited or panicked. It was hard to tell with humans. "All right," the voice came back. "We've got people scrambling. Come on in. Sending coordinates now. Welcome to Earth, I guess." Almost laughed. It was such a strange way to greet visitors from another world. No formal protocols, no diplomatic ceremonies, just come on in and I guess. Perhaps the humans truly were as strange as everyone said. The Serenity's Grace crawled toward the blue planet, watched it grow larger on a beautiful world of blue oceans and white clouds and green land. It looked peaceful. It looked like a good place to die if it came to that. "Captain," said Milo, his voice suddenly tight with fear, "I am detecting launches from the planet's surface. Many launches. Hundreds of vessels are approaching our position." Felt her 4 hearts freeze in her chest. Had she been wrong? Were the humans attacking? Had she led her crew from one death to another? "Weapons?" she asked. I cannot tell, Captain. They are too small for warships, but there are so many of them." The vessels appeared on a swarm of lights rising from the blue planet like sparks from a fire. They were coming fast, faster than had expected from a primitive species. Within an hour, the first ships would reach them. "Should we run?" Captain asked. Run where? Their engines were nearly dead. Their life support was nearly dead. If the humans wanted to destroy them, there was nothing they could do to stop it. "No," said, "we wait, we trust." It was the hardest order she had ever given. The first human vessel arrived 30 minutes later. It was small and ugly and looked like it had been built in a hurry. Strange symbols were painted on its side, NASA, and an image of a blue circle with stars. More ships followed. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some were sleek and white. Some were blocky and industrial. Some looked like they had been pulled out of storage that morning and barely made. They surrounded the Serenity's Grace like a protective shell. "Captain," Milo said, and now his voice was filled with wonder instead of fear. "They are not warships, I think they are rescue ships, tugs, cargo haulers, emergency response craft." Stared at the humans had not sent an army. They had sent everyone they had. Scientists and engineers and emergency workers and ordinary citizens, all rushing into space to help strangers they had never met. A new transmission came through. A different voice this time, younger, more energetic. "Serenity's Grace, this is the Rescue Coordination Team. We're here to help. Please don't be alarmed by the number of vessels. When we put out the call, everyone wanted to come. I mean everyone. We've got NASA, ESA, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and I think that's a yacht owned by some tech billionaire who just wanted to see aliens. Sorry about that. He's mostly harmless. Anyway, we're going to bring you in, get you fixed up, and make sure your people are safe. Sound good?" Found that she could not speak. Her throat had closed with an emotion she could not name. Answered for her, that sounds acceptable, thank you." "No problem," the human said cheerfully. "That's what neighbors are for, right? Even if we just met. All right, attaching tow lines now. Sit tight, new friends, Earth's got you." The tow lines connected. The human vessels, working together, began to pull the Serenity's Grace toward the blue planet. Finally found her voice. "Milo," she said quietly, "update the ship's log, first contact with humanity, initial assessment." She paused, watching the swarm of human vessels surrounding her dying ship like a protective embrace. "They came. They all came. I do not understand these creatures, but I think we may have found something rare in this galaxy." "What is that, Captain?" Milo asked. Watched the blue planet grow larger. A world of chaos and contradictions, of primitive technology and impossible kindness. "Friends," she said. "I think we may have found friends." The first human to board the Serenity's Grace was a short woman with dark hair and a bright orange suit. She climbed through the emergency airlock, pulled off her helmet, and smiled the widest smile had ever seen. "Hi there," she said. I'm Maria, I'm an engineer. We're here to fix your ship. Also, are you hungry because we brought food? We brought a lot of food. Behind her, more humans poured through the airlock. They carried toolboxes and welding equipment and strange devices that did not recognize. They also carried bags and containers filled with food. So much food. The smell of it filled the corridor, strange and warm and somehow comforting. We were not expecting this, said. We only asked for repairs. Laughed. It was a loud, happy sound. Yeah, well, that's not how we do things. When someone's in trouble, you help. And when you help, you feed them. It's like a rule or something. My grandmother would come back from the dead and hit me with a shoe if I showed up to help someone without bringing food. Did not understand what a grandmother or a shoe had to do with anything. But she did not have time to ask, because suddenly the ship was full of humans. They moved with a strange energy that had never seen before. They talked constantly to each other and to the crew. They asked questions about everything. How did the engines work? What was this panel for? Why did it have 4 eyes? Did they like pizza? What was their favorite color? Chief Engineer stood in the engine room, watching with horror as a team of humans tore apart his carefully maintained systems. This is wrong, he said. This is all wrong. You cannot connect those two components. They are not compatible. A young human man looked up from his work. He had grease on his face and a tool in his hand that looked like it had been made for a completely different purpose. Sure, they're compatible, he said. I just connected them. But the power flow. We're routing it through this secondary conduit here. Had to strip some wire from the backup systems, but you weren't using those anyway. Those are safety systems. The human grinned. Exactly, safety systems, not using systems. You're using the main systems. The backup stuff was just sitting there doing nothing. Turn 2, his expression one of pure despair. Captain, they are violating 17 different engineering principles. The Galactic Engineering Council would never approve this. Does it work? Asked. That is not the point. Does it work? The old engineer paused. He looked at the readouts on his panel. The numbers were higher than they had been in months. The engines, which had been dying hours ago, were now running at 40% capacity, then 50, then 60. It appears to work, admitted, but I do not understand how. The human engineer patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry about it, buddy. We don't always understand how either. We just try stuff until it works. Here, want some pizza? He handed a flat triangle of bread covered in red sauce and melted cheese. Took it carefully, as if it might explode. What is this? He asked. Food, good food, try it. Took a small bite. His 4 eyes went wide. This is acceptable, he said quietly. Then he took another bite, then another. This is very acceptable. While the humans worked on the ship, was taken to the medical bay. The doctor, a gentle soul named, was already there, watching with fascination as human medics treated the injured crew members. They are giving your people stimulant injections, told, and something they call painkillers. Their medicine is very aggressive. Aggressive. They do not wait for the body to heal itself. They force it. They have drugs for everything. Drugs to make them sleep. Drugs to keep them awake. Drugs to make them happy. Drugs to make them calm. Their bodies are like war zones and their medicine is like an army. Watched a human medic give an injection to a wounded crew member. The crew member, who had been pale and weak, suddenly sat up. Color returned to their skin. It works, said. Yes, admitted. That is the strange thing. It should not work. Their approach is chaotic and unpredictable, but it works. Later that day, was connected to a video call with Earth's leaders. She had expected a formal meeting with 1 or 2 representatives. Instead, she found herself looking at a screen divided into dozens of small windows, each showing a different human face. This is the Joint Emergency Alien Welcome Committee, explained a man with gray hair and a tired expression. We put it together this morning. I apologize for the chaos. We have never done this before. Neither have we, said. The meeting was unlike anything she had experienced. Humans interrupted each other constantly. They argued about small details. One man spent 5 minutes explaining that he represented something called, and insisted that his opinion mattered as much as any government. But beneath the chaos sensed something else. These humans cared. They cared deeply. They were not pretending to be interested in the. They were genuinely curious, genuinely concerned, genuinely eager to help. Tell us what happened, said a woman in a military uniform. Tell us why your ship was damaged. Told them about the Dominion. She explained how they had been expanding across the galaxy, conquering or destroying anyone who stood in their way. She described the attack on the Serenity's Grace, how they had targeted a peaceful diplomatic vessel without warning or provocation. The room went quiet, watched the human faces change. The curiosity faded, something else took its place, something hard and cold and dangerous. They attacked you, said the military woman. Her voice was flat. While you were on a diplomatic mission, while you were trying to negotiate peace. Yes, said. They have been trying to mediate between thee and their victims. We believe that all conflicts can be resolved through communication. The disagreed. So they tried to kill you. Yes. The military woman leaned forward. How far away is this Dominion? How long before they can reach us? Hesitated, she had not expected this question. I do not know, perhaps 6 months if they choose to expand in this direction, perhaps longer. And what kind of military forces do they have? Captain, said another human, a man with glasses and a nervous expression. Perhaps we should focus on the immediate situation. I am focusing on the immediate situation, the military woman said. The immediate situation is that there are hostile aliens out there who attack peaceful ships without warning. The immediate situation is that we just learned we are not alone in the universe, and our new neighbors include a species that enjoys murder. She turned back to, tell me everything you know about the. Told her. She told them about the warships, their weapons, their tactics. She told them about the worlds that had fallen to the Dominion, the species that had been enslaved or destroyed. The humans listened in silence. When she finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then the military woman spoke again. Thank you, Captain. We have a lot to think about. In the meantime, please let us know if you need anything, anything at all. You have already given us so much, said. The food, the repairs, the medical care. How can we repay you? The woman smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. You don't repay us. That's not how this works. You're in trouble. We help. That's it. That's the whole deal. After the meeting ended, a young human crew member approached with a small cup of dark liquid. You look stressed, he said. Try this, it's coffee. Took the cup carefully. The liquid smelled bitter and strange. She took a small sip. The effect was immediate. Her 4 hearts began to beat faster. Her mind, which had been foggy with exhaustion, suddenly became sharp and clear. Colors seemed brighter. Sounds seemed sharper. She felt like she could solve any problem, face any challenge, conquer any obstacle. What is this? She gasped. The human grinned. We call it productivity juice. It's how we get things done. Want another cup? Looked down at the empty cup in her hand. She did not remember drinking it all. Yes, she said. Yes, I would like another cup, perhaps several. The human laughed and went to get more coffee. Stood in the corridor of her damaged ship, surrounded by chaos and noise and busy humans, and felt something she had not felt since the attack. She felt hope. These strange, loud, chaotic creatures had come running when she called for help. They had brought food and tools and medicine and something called coffee. They had fixed her ship with tape and wire and impossible optimism. And now they were asking about her enemies, with cold eyes and hard voices. Did not know what the future held, but she was beginning to think that finding Earth might be the best thing that had ever happened to her people. The humans were strange. The humans were unpredictable. The humans were possibly insane. But they were kind, and kindness, was learning, was worth more than all the weapons in the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since the Serenity's Grace arrived at Earth and was having a nervous breakdown. He stood in the engine room of his ship, staring at machinery that he no longer recognized. The humans had not simply repaired the engines. They had transformed them into something new, something terrifying, something that violated every principle of engineering he had learned in 50 years of service. "Output is up 340%, said Dr. Sarah, the lead human engineer. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, and she seemed completely unaware that she had committed crimes against physics. "We noticed some inefficiencies in your original design. Your people built for elegance and safety. We built for power." "But the heat distribution," said Weekly. "The energy flow, the stress on the containment fields." "We reinforced the containment fields, added some extra cooling systems, rerouted the power through these new conduits we installed." Doctor pointed at a series of tubes and wires that looked like they had been stolen from several different machines and forced to work together. "It's not pretty, but it works." "It should not work," said. "And yet it does," Doctor smiled. "That's engineering, friend. Theory is nice, but results are better." Looked at the readouts on his panel. The numbers were impossible. The Serenity's Grace could now travel faster than any ship in history. It could run for longer without refueling. It could push through interference that would have torn the original design apart. "How?" he whispered. "Coffee and stubbornness," Doctor said. "That's the human secret. We refuse to accept that something can't be done, so we keep trying until it works. Here, speaking of coffee." She handed him a cup. "You look like you need it." Took the cup. He had developed a taste for the human drink over the past 3 weeks. It made him feel strange and jittery, but also impossibly alert. He suspected it was not entirely healthy. He also suspected he no longer cared. While dealt with the engines, Captain was being given a tour of the weapons systems. She had not asked for this tour. She was not sure she wanted this tour, but the humans insisted. "We installed point defense systems here and here," said a young human officer named Jackson. He was tall and enthusiastic and spoke about weapons with the same excitement that children showed when discussing philosophy. "They'll shoot down incoming missiles and small fighters automatically. Very useful in a combat situation." "The Serenity's Grace is a diplomatic vessel," said carefully. "We do not engage in combat." Right. But just in case someone else engages in combat with you, you know. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it." Jackson moved to another panel. "And over here we installed." Felt her foreheart skip a beat. "You installed what?" "Electromagnetic projectile weapons. They accelerate metal slugs to incredible speeds using magnetic fields. No explosives, so they're very efficient. And they pack a serious punch." Jackson grinned. "One shot from these bobbies could punch through a warship like it was made of paper." "We are pacifists," said. "We do not use weapons." "You don't have to use them, but you have them now. The safety is on, permanently locked. You'd have to deliberately unlock it to fire. But if you ever change your mind, if you ever find yourself in a situation where peaceful solutions aren't working," Jackson shrugged, "well, you'll have options." Did not know what to say. She had never held a weapon in her life. No had for thousands of years. But as she looked at the controls she found herself thinking about the attack, about her crew members who had died, about the look in the eyes of the survivors when they talked about what happened. "Thank you," she said finally. "I hope we never use them." "So do I," Jackson said. "But hope isn't a strategy, preparation is." Later that day, was summoned to a large room in the human space station that now surrounded her ship. The station had been built in 18 days. 18 days. When had learned this fact, He had gone to his quarters and not come out for several hours. The room was filled with humans in various uniforms, military officers, government officials, scientists. They all stood as entered, a show of respect that surprised her. "Captain," said a tall man with white hair. He was introduced as Admiral James, the father of the engineer who had destroyed and rebuilt her engines. "Thank you for coming. We have something to show you." He pressed a button and a large screen came to life. It showed data, star charts, ship movements, communication intercepts, supply line analyses, all of it focused on one target: the Dominion. "We've been listening to galactic communications for decades," Admiral said. "We knew we weren't alone. We knew that eventually we would meet our neighbors. We hoped they would be friendly. We prepared for the possibility that they would not be." Stared at the screen. The level of detail was incredible. Fleet movements, base locations, resource dependencies, weaknesses. "How do you have this?" she asked. "We're good at watching," said a woman in a dark suit. She had not been introduced but suspected she was some kind of intelligence officer. "And we're very good at keeping secrets. Until now." "They depend on a single fuel source," Admiral continued. "A mining operation in the nebula. If that operation were disrupted, their fleet would be stranded within months. Their supply lines are long and vulnerable. Their communication systems have exploitable weaknesses. They are not as powerful as they appear." "You have been studying them," said. "For how long?" "Since we first intercepted their communications, about 30 years. Admiral met her eyes. "We knew a threat like this existed. We've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" The Admiral pressed another button. The screen changed to show something new. Ships, human ships, hundreds of them. "We built a war fleet," he said. "In secret, 12 carriers, 47 destroyers, 200 fighters, and this." The image zoomed in on a massive vessel, still under construction at the edge of the station. It was half a kilometer long, bristling with weapons that made the on the Serenity's grace look like toys. "We call it Terra's Fist," Admiral said. "It's not finished yet, but it will be soon." Felt dizzy. The humans were not the primitive species she had been taught about. They were not innocent children stumbling into a dangerous galaxy. They had known about the danger for 30 years. They had been building weapons. They had been waiting. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you build all of this in secret? Why not tell the galaxy? Why not seek allies?" Admiral smiled. It was a sad smile full of old pain. "Because we didn't know who we could trust. We detected signals from dozens of species. Some sounded peaceful. Some sounded aggressive. Some sounded like they might destroy us the moment they knew we existed. So we watched. We listened. We prepared. And we waited." "Waited for what?" "For a sign, for proof that there were good people out there worth fighting for." He gestured at. "You came to us, Captain, damaged and desperate, asking for help. And we learned that there are species like yours, peaceful, kind, innocent. And we learned that there are species like the who would destroy you without a second thought." He walked closer to. When he spoke again, his voice was soft but filled with something that made her 4 hearts race. "We've been waiting 30 years to introduce ourselves to the galaxy. We just needed a reason. Now we have one." Thought about her crew, about the council who had warned her against contacting humans, about the Galactic Council who had classified Earth as a primitive world, not worth attention. "The council will be concerned," she said. "They will worry that you are dangerous." "We are dangerous," Admiral said. "But we're dangerous for your enemies, not for you. There's a difference." One of the officers stepped forward. "Captain, we'd like you to stay 1 more week. We're putting together an escort to accompany you back to space." "An escort?" The officer smiled. "A small fleet, just in case they try to intercept you, and just to introduce ourselves to the galaxy properly." Looked at the screen showing Terra's Fist. She thought about the on her ship. She thought about the coffee that had become her favorite drink. She thought about the strange, chaotic, impossible humans who had taken her dying ship and turned it into something new. "I must contact my council," she said. "They will want to know about this." "Of course," Admiral nodded. "Take all the time you need. And Captain, when you talk to your council, tell them something for me." "What?" "Tell them that Earth remembers its friends, and Earth does not forgive those who hurt them." Left the meeting room with her mind full of new thoughts. The galaxy was about to change. The humans were coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. That night, she stood at the observation window of her ship, drinking coffee and watching the humans work on their massive dreadnought. Lights flickered across its hull as thousands of workers labored day and night. They were building a weapon, but they were building it to protect people like her, to punish those who attacked the innocent, to ensure that no peaceful species would have to face the alone. Perhaps thought the galaxy had been wrong about humans. They were not primitive. They were not dangerous in the way people feared. They were something else entirely. They were protectors, and the galaxy was about to find out what that meant. 1 week later, Captain stood on the observation deck of the Serenity's Grace and watched the void fill with ships. They came from every corner of Earth, from hidden bases buried under mountains and oceans, from orbital stations that had been disguised as civilian research platforms, from shipyards in the asteroid belt that no one outside of Earth had ever detected. 12 carriers, each one capable of launching 40 fighters, 47 destroyers bristling with weapons, 200 fighter craft, small and fast and deadly. And at the center of it all, the massive form of Terra's fist, finally complete, its hull gleaming with fresh paint and terrible purpose. "You built this in secret," said quietly, "for 30 years. Admiral stood beside her, his hands clasped behind his back. "We hoped we would never need it. We built it anyway." "Why?" The Admiral was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with old memories. "Because we learned a long time ago that hope is not enough. Wishes do not stop bullets. Prayers do not deflect bombs. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We tried believing that if we were good enough, if we were kind enough, the universe would be kind in return." He shook his head. "It wasn't. So we learned. We prepared. And we promised ourselves that we would never be helpless again." Thought about history. 10,000 years of peace. 10,000 years of trusting that words could solve any problem. And then the had come, and words had meant nothing, and her people had died in the cold spaces between stars. "Perhaps we should have learned the same lesson," she said. "No," Admiral turned to look at her. "Your people preserve something precious, the belief that peace is possible, the hope that conflicts can be resolved without violence. Never lose that, Captain. The galaxy needs people like you, but it also needs people like us, people who will stand in front of the peaceful ones and hold the line against the darkness." The crew had spent the week mingling with the human crews. It had been an education for both sides. Ensign Milo had become friends with a young human pilot named Jackson. They were an odd pair. Milo was quiet and thoughtful, still struggling with the trauma of the attack. Jackson was loud and confident, convinced that he was invincible and that the universe was his personal adventure story. "You need to loosen up," Jackson told Milo one evening as they sat in the station's common area. "You're too serious. Life is short, my friend. You gotta enjoy it." 43 of my are dead," Milo said. "It is hard to enjoy anything." Jackson's smile faded. For a moment he looked older than his years. "Yeah, I know, my grandmother was killed in a war back on Earth. My father lost 3 friends in a training accident. My best friend from school died in a shuttle crash 2 years ago." He was quiet for a moment. "We lose people too. It never stops hurting, but you can't let the hurt be the only thing. You have to remember why you're alive, what you're fighting for." "What are you fighting for?" Jackson smiled again, but it was a different smile now, softer, more real. "People like you, people who need protecting, people who deserve a chance to live without fear." He clapped Milo on the shoulder. Come on, let me teach you some human swear words. They're very therapeutic. In the medical bay, Doctor had become fascinated by human biology. She spent hours talking with the human doctors, learning about their strange, contradictory species. You are remarkable creatures, she told a human doctor named Park. Your bodies are at war with themselves. You have evolved to be both incredibly strong and incredibly fragile. You can survive injuries that would kill any other species, but you are also killed by invisible organisms that your immune system cannot detect. We're works in progress, Dr. Park said with a shrug. Evolution didn't give us claws or fangs or thick skin. It gave us brains that refuse to quit and bodies that run on stubbornness. And coffee. Dr. Park laughed. Yes, and coffee, that's our secret weapon. In the engine room, Chief Engineer had finally made peace with the modifications to his ship. He still did not understand how they worked. He suspected he never would, but he had learned to appreciate the human approach to engineering. You do not respect rules, he told Doctor during one of their many conversations. You do not follow proper procedures. You take things apart and put them back together in ways that should not function. And yet they function, Doctor said. Yes, that is the part I cannot understand. How do you know it will work if you do not follow the established principles? Doctor thought about this. We don't know, she admitted. Not for certain, but we try anyway. We fail, we learn, we try again. Eventually something works, and when it works we don't question it too much. We just move on to the next problem. Shook his head. Your species is insane. Probably, but we get results. She handed him a fresh cup of coffee. Speaking of which, we've made some additional modifications to your shield generators. You should see a 40% improvement in protection. Took the coffee. He had stopped asking how the modifications worked. He just accepted them now, like he accepted the strange human food and the strange human music and the strange human habit of making jokes about death. Thank you, he said, for everything. That's what friends are for, Doctor said. On the 5th day, a scout ship was detected at the edge of the Sol system. The human fleet went a high alert. Fighters launched from their carriers. Destroyers moved into defensive formations. Terra's fist turned its massive weapons toward the intruder. But the scout ship did not attack. It hung at the edge of sensor range, watching, scanning, recording. They're cataloging our forces, Admiral said, taking pictures for their bosses. Should we intercept them? Asked one of his officers. No, let them look. Let them see exactly what's waiting for them. The Admiral smiled coldly. Let them run home and tell their warlord about the primitives who built a war fleet. The scout ship stayed for 6 hours. Then it turned and fled into hyperspace. They will come, said. When they learn about your fleet, they will come. I know, Admiral said. We're counting on it. On the 7th day, a transmission arrived from the Dominion. It was broadcast on all frequencies, intended to be heard by everyone in the system. The face that appeared on them was reptilian and cruel. The warlord, a massive creature with scales like armor and eyes like black pits. Species designated humanity, the warlord said. His voice was deep and filled with contempt. You have given shelter to enemies of the Dominion. You have built weapons in foolish defiance of powers beyond your understanding. This is your only warning. He leaned closer to the camera. Surrender the vessel and all aboard. Disarm your fleet. Kneel before the Dominion. You have 1 solar cycle to comply. Refuse and we will reduce your world to ash. Your species will be erased. Your name will be forgotten. This is not a threat. This is a fact. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center of Terra's fist. Humans and alike stared at the blank screen, processing what they had heard. Then Admiral spoke. Well, that was rude. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. What will you do? Asked. The Admiral turned to her. There was something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Not anger exactly, something colder, something more dangerous. "We're going to respond," he said. "Would you like to do the honors?" Hesitated, they had never made threats. They had never an ultimatum. They had always sought peace, even when peace meant surrender. But her people had sought peace with and they had tried to kill them anyway. 43 of her crew were dead because they believed in diplomacy with creatures who did not deserve it. "Yes," she said, "I will respond." They gave her a microphone. The transmission was broadcast on all frequencies, just as this had been. Every ship in the system would hear it. Every recording device would capture it. "This is Captain," she said. Her voice was steady. "I speak for the crew of the Serenity's Grace and for our friends of Earth." She paused, took a breath, thought about her dead crew members, thought about the humans who had helped her when no one else would, thought about the coffee that had become her favorite drink and the friends she had made among these strange, wonderful creatures. "They have a message for the Dominion." She picked up the cup of coffee that sat beside her console, took a long, slow sip, let the silence stretch. "Come and take us." She ended the transmission. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Admiral began to laugh. It was a real laugh full of genuine joy. Around him, other humans joined in. They clapped on the back. They cheered. They raised their own cups of coffee in salute. "Captain," Admiral said, still grinning, "I think you might be an honorary human now." Looked at thee where the stars waited cold and indifferent. Somewhere out there they were coming. An entire armada bent on destruction and revenge. But Earth was ready, and for the first time in her long diplomatic career was ready to fight. "I will accept that honor," she said. "Now let us prepare for war." The armada arrived on the 8th day. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their weapons already charged, their crews hungry for conquest. At their center flew the Dominion's Claw, the personal flagship of the warlord himself. It was a monster of a ship, twice the size of Terra's fist, bristling with enough firepower to crack a planet. The warlord stood on his bridge and looked at the human fleet waiting for him. He laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through his ship. "This is what the primitives have built," he said. "This is their great defense. Destroy them all." The armada surged forward. And then the asteroid belt exploded. Humanity's first strike came from platforms hidden among the rocks, weapons that had been waiting in silence for 30 years. Missiles and rounds and focused energy beams tore into the formation. Ships vanished in balls of fire. The carefully organized attack formation became chaos in a matter of seconds. 30 ships down, reported an officer on Terra's fist. "They are regrouping." Admiral nodded. "Good. Now let's show them what we can really do." The human fleet moved forward to meet It was a smaller force, outnumbered nearly 2-1. But the humans had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. They knew every weakness in ship design. They had practiced tactics specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses, and they fought with a fury that they had never encountered before. Destroyers worked in pairs, covering each other's blind spots, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns that tore through shields. Fighters swarmed around the larger enemy ships like angry insects, too fast and too numerous to track. Carriers launched wave after wave of fresh pilots, keeping the pressure constant and relentless. And at the center of it all, Terra's fist moved like a predator through a herd of prey. Its massive guns spoke and ships died. Captain watched the battle from the bridge of the Serenity's Grace. Her ship had been positioned at the center of the human formation, serving as a coordination point. They were excellent tacticians. They had spent thousands of years studying conflict, even if they had never participated in it. Now, for the first time, they put that knowledge to use. "They are trying to flank us on the left," she said, studying the sensor displays. "If we shift the third destroyer group to intercept, we can trap them against the gravity well of the fourth planet." Admiral's voice came through the communication channel. "Confirmed. Third group, you heard the captain. Execute." The destroyers moved. The ships, caught between the human vessels and the planet's gravity, were torn apart in a devastating crossfire. 60 enemy ships down, reported Ensign Milo. His voice was steady but could see his hands shaking. He had never seen anything like this. Neither had she. "Keep tracking their movements," told him. "Watch for patterns. They are arrogant. They will make mistakes." The battle raged for hours. Both sides took losses. Human ships were destroyed. Human pilots died. But for every human vessel that fell, 3 ships were eliminated. The primitives, it turned out, were very good at war. Then the warlord made his move. The Dominion's claw pushed through the battle line, ignoring the smaller ships that tried to stop it. Its target was clear: Terra's fist. The 2 massive dreadnoughts faced each other across a gap of empty space, and the universe seemed to hold its breath. "All ships clear the area," Admiral ordered. "This is our fight." The 2 giants opened fire at the same time. The space between them became a storm of energy and metal and death. Terra's fist shuddered under the impact of weapons. Its shields flickered. Hull breaches appeared along its side. "Shields failing," reported an officer. "Hull integrity down to 60%. We're losing primary weapons." Admiral gripped the arms of his command chair. "Keep firing. Everything we've got." The Dominion's claw was taking damage too, but not enough. It was bigger, stronger, more heavily armored. It pushed closer, its weapons tearing into Terra's fist with relentless fury. "Hull integrity at 40%, the officer reported. "Sir, we can't take much more of this." On the Serenity's Grace watched Terra's fist burn. She watched humans die, humans who had come to help her when no one else would. Humans who had shared their food and their coffee and their hope. She thought about the weapons on her ship, that the humans had installed, the weapons she had sworn she would never use. She said quietly, "Yes, Captain." "Unlock the weapons." The bridge went silent. Her crew stared at her. They had not fired a weapon in 10,000 years. It was against everything they believed in, everything they were. "Did not hesitate. Weapons unlocked, Captain." "Target the flagship. Fire everything." The Serenity's Grace, once a peaceful diplomatic vessel, opened fire for the first time in its existence. The spoke, sending massive metal slugs screaming across space at incredible speeds. They struck the Dominion's claw from behind, punching through shields that were focused on Terra's fist. The flagship staggered, its engines flickered, its weapons fire became erratic. "Again," ordered, "fire again." Her crew obeyed. They were pacifists. They had never been trained for combat. But they were also survivors, and they remembered their dead friends, and they were not going to watch the humans die for them without fighting back. The combined assault was too much. Terra's fist fired its remaining weapons at the same moment. The Serenity's Grace launched another volley. The Dominion's claw, caught between 2 enemies, began to break apart. The warlord's final transmission was a scream of disbelief. He could not understand how this had happened. He had brought 200 ships to crush a primitive world. He was being defeated by creatures who should have been easy prey. Then his flagship exploded, and his scream was silenced forever. The remaining ships fled. They had lost their leader. They had lost half their fleet. They had lost their belief that they were invincible. They ran for hyperspace, and the humans let them go. "Let them run," Admiral said. "Let them tell the rest of the Dominion what happened here. Let them spread the word." Earth had won, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Terra's fist was barely functional, its hull torn open in a dozen places. 30 human ships had been destroyed. Hundreds of humans had died. The Sol system was littered with debris and bodies and the broken remains of shattered dreams. Captain stood on the bridge of her ship and wept. She wept for the humans who had died protecting her. She wept for her own crew who had fired weapons for the first time in their lives. She wept for the galaxy, which would never be the same. But she also wept with relief, because they had survived, because they had won, because sometimes when you stood with friends you could do the impossible. 1 week later, addressed the Galactic Council via quantum relay. She told them everything: the attack on her ship, the human rescue, the upgrades, the fleet, the battle. The council listened in stunned silence. "You are telling us," said the eldest member, "that the humans built a secret war fleet, upgraded your ship, gave you stimulant beverages, and then fought an entire armada to protect a species they had known for 1 month?" "Yes," said. "And they won?" "Yes." Silence. "Then, are they taking applications for allies?" Earth began receiving diplomatic inquiries from over 300 species within the week. On the day the Serenity's Grace finally departed Earth orbit, stood on the observation deck and watched the blue planet grow smaller in the distance. Her ship was repaired, upgraded, and stocked with enough coffee to last a century. Ensign Milo stood beside her. He had changed during their time on Earth. He was still young, still nervous, but there was something different in his eyes now, something stronger. "Will we come back?" he asked. "Yes," said. "Many times. The humans are building a coalition, species that want to stand against the species that want to protect the innocent. That will be part of it. But we are pacifists." Thought about the weapons she had fired, about the ships she had helped destroy, about the line she had crossed that could never be uncrossed. "We are still pacifists," she said. "We still believe in peace. We still hope that conflicts can be resolved with words, but we have learned that sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes you must protect the people you love. Sometimes you must stand with your friends even if it means fighting." She turned away from the window. "The humans have a saying. They call it peace through strength. It means that sometimes the best way to prevent war is to be strong enough that no one wants to fight you." "Is that what we are now, strong?" Smiled. "We are not strong, but we have strong friends, and that is enough." The engineer who had helped repair their ship all those weeks ago appeared in the doorway. She was grinning as always. "Hey, Captain, just finished the final calibrations. You're all set to go." She handed a small package, going away present from the team. Opened it. Inside was a bag of coffee beans and a note written in Universal Standard. "Thanks for being our first alien friends. Don't be strangers. Love, Earth." Felt her eyes sting with tears. "Thank you for everything." Shrugged. "That's what neighbors are for, right? Even if we just met." She pulled into a hug, a human gesture that had learned to appreciate. "Take care of yourself, Captain, and come back soon. We're throwing a party when the coalition officially forms and you're the guest of honor." The Serenity's Grace jumped to hyperspace, faster than any ship had ever traveled. Sat in her command chair, drinking coffee, thinking about the strange creatures she was leaving behind. They were chaotic. They were unpredictable. They were loud and aggressive and sometimes crude. They had vices that seemed designed to destroy their own bodies. They fought amongst themselves over things that made no sense. But they were also kind. They were loyal. They protected strangers who asked for help. They built weapons so that peaceful species would not have to. They shared their food, their medicine, their terrible, wonderful coffee. She picked up her data pad and began composing her official report to the Council. Earth Sol System. Classification. Upgraded from Class 7 Developing World to Class 1 Strategic Ally. Notes. Recommend immediate diplomatic relations. The humans are strange, chaotic, and possibly insane. They are also the best friends the galaxy could hope for. Bring coffee when visiting. Bring lots of coffee. And do not mention that they have begun asking about galaxy-wide, some things the universe is not ready for. She paused, then added one final line. We went to Earth for repairs. We got upgrades, coffee, and a war fleet instead. I do not think the galaxy will ever be the same. and perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. She sent the report and leaned back in her chair, watching the stars stream past the window. Somewhere behind her, Earth spun on, a small blue planet full of impossible creatures who had just changed the course of history. Smiled and took another sip of coffee. The future was uncertain, war was coming, they would seek revenge, new challenges would arise. But Earth would be there, with weapons and coffee and stubborn, glorious humanity. And somehow, that made everything feel like it would be all right.